Welcome back, everybody. Today I have got for you the best stamina Necromancer build that I have played in the Dragonhold patch. I've been trying out a lot of different things on my stamina Necromancer, and I have finally landed on a build and playstyle that I absolutely love and just fits so well on the stamina Necromancer. This build covers all the weaknesses that Necromancer has, namely it being slow, and also plays to the strengths of it as well. We've got a whopping 6k weapon damage, fully buffed on this spec. Absolutely amazing sustain in every department, magicka, stamina, and health recovery. And on top of it, we can hit like a truck and nobody can slow us down. I've got a new build video format for you guys today as well, so I hope that you enjoy it. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. And of course, if you're looking for a written guide to this build, you can find it on my website, KristoferESO.com, a link to the build in the description below as well. Alright, so to start, we are a Wood Elf on this build, and Wood Elf I think is the best choice all around because we are trying to play a speed-based medium armor build on the Necromancer, which is the slowest class in the game. So yeah, Wood Elf's going to give us a 10% movement speed bonus on our roll dodge. It's going to give us the stamina recovery, the extra max stam, and the penetration when we roll. So we get a lot of stuff that Necromancer kind of doesn't have. So Wood Elf is just a really good fit for a medium armor Necromancer in PvP in general. Now, Orc would also be a great option, however, Wood Elf takes the win here simply because you get the movement speed bonus in your Mist form. And Mist form is a very important mobility skill for this build. Now, any other stamina race would also work as well, and even a magicka race, if you don't have the ideal one, just work with what you got. Now, taking a look at our buffed up stats on the build, we've got some pretty nice max stat all around. Almost 30k stamina, which is pretty decent for a very burst-oriented medium armor build. And then the 24k HP, this is a nice HP cushion. It's on the higher side for my burst builds that I like to play, which is really great. It's just going to make us harder to take down. Now, taking a look at the sustain side of things, we have got pretty excellent sustain all around. 1500 magicka recovery, 900 health recovery, and 2300 stamina recovery. We are, of course, a vampire as well, and the health recovery is very important for a vampire because this is the only source of healing that will tick when we are in our Mist form. Now, our weapon damage fully buffed on this build is also pretty sweet. We got 5k weapon damage with just our rally up and, of course, our 7th Legion on the back bar. When we have got our minor brutality and we have got the infused bow on the back bar going, we are sitting at just shy of 6k weapon damage on this build. And the weapon critical, of course, is at 44% on our front bar and 42.8% on the back bar, so we have a good chance of landing crits as well, and that fits really well into the fact that we're running the Shadow Mundus for that additional critical damage. Mixing that with Critical Rush kind of being our primary spammable for the build, the guaranteed crit with the Shadow Mundus is going to push out a lot of consistent damage. Now, the physical spell resist of this build is nothing too impressive. We've got 18.5k physical spell resistance with 2,400 critical resists, which is pretty bare bones for medium armor. It's not crazy high. It's not really low either. We do have a decent amount of crit resist, but we do have a lot of well fitted on. If you wanted to pack more crit resist on this build, you definitely could run more impenetrable. But the defensive strengths of this build is really about avoiding damage, having quite high healing power, and then using your mobility as well. And of course, we are a vampire on this build because we are running Mist form. The defensive utility that Mist form offers a medium armor Necromancer allows us to push these higher regen and offensive stats without having to worry too much about giving up too many defenses. Mist form is just such a powerful defensive move, coupled with the high magicka recovery that Necromancer already has. Yeah, it's really good stuff. Now, for our food, we, of course, are using the Orzorga Smoked Bear Haunch. This is the best food choice for this build. It's going to give us all of our regens and, of course, the max hit points. Yeah, that's great. All the sustain is going to help us deal damage and stay alive, and that max HP for the burst cushion is exactly what we need, burst being our biggest weakness on this medium armor build. Now, for the potions on this build, you definitely want to go with the Essence of Health that gives us all 3 resources back, as well as the recovery buff for all of our resources as well. We just have a lot of sustain on this build in every single pool, so the recovery buffs are very important, and the flat resource return is also incredible. It'll allow us to get a bunch of back-to-back Mist forms off that our smaller magicka bar wouldn't normally allow for when we chug our potion as well. So taking a look at the gear we've got on this build, it is very offensively focused. The first set that we have got is Kenna's Guise, and this is just the one piece for the weapon damage that it provides. I did the one piece weapon damage helm simply because we wanted to fit the two-piece agility in, so we weren't running a two-piece helm set, so this is the only way that we could really do that. The next set that we have is the Griffon Set, and this is my favorite medium armor set for this game in PvP. We get the minor force buff, which is going to give us the critical damage bonus. 10% crit damage is absolutely fantastic, and the minor expedition buff for the movement speed bonus. Both of these are so critical to medium armor, just for damage and staying alive. This is a great all-around medium armor set. The 2-3 piece also offering weapon critical with the 4-piece weapon damage. Those are some of the best stats we can get for our medium armor build. Now, the big bonus of running a set like this is that it allows us to have more abilities on our bar, and the big thing that I think Necromancer kind of struggles with is picking those good skills that you want to use and making adequate room for them. So Griffin's was just a choice, so we didn't have to run Race Against Time and have that extra buff to cycle. Now, the next set that we have is the 7th Legion set, and this is only on our bow bar because that is the bar that we have our armor buff on. We get weapon damage, health recovery, weapon crit, and then when we cast our armor buff, we gain 350 weapon damage and health recovery for 10 seconds. This is just a great set for PvP. Health recovery so valuable in PvP, again being the only source of healing while we're in mist form, so it'll make a huge difference for our mist form survival. And then not to mention that weapon damage bonus that it gives, we can take that over to the front bar where we have our last set, the 3 pieces of agility, and this is just going to be huge for that outgoing burst. It has been buffed in the Dragonhold patch, 1752 stam and 206 weapon damage. There is no 3-piece in the game that gives you close to this many stats for a stamina burst build, so this is absolutely fantastic. Now for our gear traits, of course the bow is infused with the weapon and spell damage enchant. On the Greatsword bar, we again have a Nirnhoned Greatsword. I have the Crushing enchant here, but you can definitely run the Minor Brutality Poison if you guys have it. This is going to give us the minor weapon damage buff, allowing us to fully push that 6k weapon damage value. The Crushing enchant is a good option, though, because it will provide us with better burst. Now for the jewelry, we of course have full infused traits with weapon damage. Medium armor gets a huge bonus to the weapon damage that it stacks, so infused weapon damage is definitely the best way to go here. The gear traits, we have got full maximum stamina enchants, and I've got 4 pieces of impenetrable mixed with 3 pieces of well-fitted. Now the impen well-fitted combo is totally up to you. You could actually run more well-fitted than impen if you wanted. It's just kind of up to user preference. Honestly, well-fitted is an incredibly good gear trait. It gives you a huge amount of sustain for the cost reduction to your rolls in medium armor, so it is definitely worthwhile. But because we use Mistform a lot on this build, I felt like 4 impen is probably the sweet spot to be at. Now for the skills we're using on this build, the first ability we have is Executioner, and this is going to be our primary kill move for the build. Pretty much we're just going to use it when our opponent is at 50% or below HP, because we start to get a huge damage bonus on it, and due to our Gravelord skill being slotted on our front bar, we get a 10% bonus to our crit chance when our opponent is below 25% health as well. Now the next ability we have is Critical Rush, and this is your primary spammable for the build. I do want to buff up so you guys can see this tooltip. 7,351 damage with the Shadow Mundus on our Critical Rush. This is a really nice tooltip for a Necromancer, and this is going to deal some pretty chunky damage as we are further away from the target, up to 50% increased damage at our maximum distance. This ability, of course, is always a critical strike. Mix that with our Shadow Mundus, making it one of the best choice spammables that we can use even at close range. Now the next ability that we have is Camouflage Hunter, and this is here for that passive slot. We get the Major Savagery buff for the weapon critical, which we really need on the front bar, synergizing with the Shadow Mundus again, and then finally when we land a crit on our front bar from an opponent's flank, we will get the Minor Berserk buff for 5 seconds as well for that 8% damage bonus that it provides. And last but not least, we also get 3% weapon damage for slotting this on our front bar, so just a massive passive damage increase to slot this ability here. This is also a stealth detect for us. We do have some AoE with our ultimate, and the Fear is technically an AoE stun. However, the Camouflaged Hunter is going to be the nail in the coffin to pull Nightblades out of stealth if they're on top of you. Now, the next ability we have is Rally. This is our primary burst heal for the build. It is access to the major brutality buff and the minor endurance buffs. Necromancer, again, stacking so much base stamina recovery. That minor endurance buff is really nice. And of course, after you cast Rally, when you recast it, you get that nice big burst heal, increasing in strength the longer that you wait. On this build, you can expect to get massive crit heals with our Rally, in the nature of up to 20k crit heals, I believe, on this spec. So yeah, nice big Rally healing power. Now, the next ability we have is Turn Evil. This is our primary stun for the build, and honestly, this is probably the best stun that you can take for a Necromancer. It is an undodgeable, unblockable stun that holds your opponent in place, and it just fits so well with Blast Bones. Blast Bones has a lot of trouble hitting the target, especially when the server starts to get laggy, so having the Fear just makes Blast Bones a much more reliable ability, and you can actually get more reliable combos with it. This is the best stun that I have taken for Necromancer yet, and I'm really enjoying it, not only with Blast Bones, but also with the Pestilent Colossus ultimate. If you fear people in your ultimate smash, they will get messed up. It is not okay. It's a very, very good stun for this build and for Necromancer in general. Not to mention, again, we get 3% weapon damage for this being a Fighter's Guild skill on our front bar. Now, the ultimate that we got, of course, is Pestilent Colossus. This is the Big Daddy Necro Smash. It will deal those huge smacks. We've got a nice, beefy, almost 15k, 16k smack from this guy. It will apply the major vulnerability as well. Yeah, absolutely devastating to groups of players, single players. Doesn't matter what you hit this with. It is very strong as long as you make sure it hits them. And of course, we get a 10% crit chance bonus when our opponent drops below 25% HP for having this ability slotted on our front bar. Now, for our back bar, the first ability we have is Blast Bones, and this is your primary burst skill for the build. You're just going to set your Blast Bones down and just pray that it hits the target you sent it at. Honestly, Blast Bones is working a lot better in the Dragonhold patch, but it still has its targeting issues. Like I said, with Fear, it is just a much better ability. Fear makes Blast Bones work, in my opinion. Without the Fear, I had a lot of trouble getting any kind of decent, consistent combos with Blast Bones, but with the Fear, as long as our opponent wasn't too mobile, we could reliably get Blast Bones to do some work. It is going to do a huge amount of upfront damage. We're going to buff up and look at the tooltip on the front bar. 18k damage on the Blast Bones with the Shadow Mundus. Yeah, we're going to have some devastating burst with it on this build. And then, of course, it will apply the Major Defile to our opponent, reducing their healing received by 30% for 4 seconds. If you continue to cycle Blast Bones on your opponent, it makes it very, very hard for them to come back from it. Now, the next ability we have is Mortal Coil, and this ability has made Stamina Necromancer for me. Now, I've said that about a few different Stamcrow abilities in the past, but I've been playing around with a lot of different builds, and yeah, this one is the one that I think is the best. This is the best Necro build I've played, and it's the combination of Mistform and the Mortal Coil. I just can't get enough of it. The Mortal Coil is such a powerful heal over time, and it of course scales onto which bar we're on, so we're going to buff up again so you guys can see the tooltip. Off of our front bar, we've got a 23.4k health over 12-second tooltip on the Coil. It will restore 1200 stamina over 12 seconds while we siphon the corpse, and of course we get a healing done bonus while we have this slotted on our bar. Now, this is on our back bar, so it won't affect our burst heal from Rally, but nonetheless, this heal is absolutely fantastic. Now, Mist Form will stop the Coil from healing you while you're in Mist Form, but once you pop out again, the Coil will continue to heal you, which is absolutely what we want from this ability. Not to mention, we still restore stamina while in Mist Form in this Coil, so it is not a waste at all to Coil a corpse and then mist away. So yeah, just a really fantastic utility skill for the Necromancer. It is also 100% free to cast, and the way that I have designed this build, you will almost always have a corpse to be pulling a Mortal Coil from. This is the only corpse interaction skill we run, and that's for good reason, because it is, in my opinion, probably the best one. Now, the next skill we've got is Elusive Mist, and this is one of your best defensive utilities for the build. It is going to soak up a massive amount of incoming damage. You take 75% less damage while in Mist Form. You gain Major Expedition, and you're immune to stun and immobilize. However, your Magicka recovery will not happen, and you can also not heal yourself while in Mist Form. Again, the health recovery will work while in Mist. That is why it is a big deal for this build. But Mist Form is just a fantastic way for you to get out of situations where other abilities will not save you. It is a huge damage cloak as well, so if you have a Nightblade coming out of stealth and you're low on stamina, you can hug your mist form to soak up that incoming damage and then block coming out of it. It's just a great way for you to conserve your resources, especially on a stamina build. You can conserve your stamina pool, burn that magicka, and then have the stamina to work with to do the things that you need to. Now, the next ability we have is Spirit Guardian, and this is a fantastic skill for the Stamina Necromancer. Again, it's going to be another source of corpses for our mortal Coil. It is also going to be a heal over time. 1902 health every 2 seconds. That's not crazy high, but hey, that's like 1k health recovery, so I'll take that. That's awesome. And then on top of it, we get a 10% damage reduction while this ability is up. This ability will also give us our sustain bonus. It's going to give us the 200 magicka and stamina recovery for having a pet up as a Necromancer. And then finally, we have got Summoner's Armor, and there's a lot of good use for this ability, and there's a lot of great synergy with the Necromancer in particular, and the sets we use for this ability. So it's going to be our standard armor buff, giving us both the physical spell resistance buff, which is fantastic. It is also going to reduce the cost of our blast bones and the skeletal mender by 15%. This is very important because this mender is actually very expensive, and the cost reduction will just help us have more magicka to use for mist form. Now, the last bit is that it creates a corpse when the effect completes. This ability has a total duration of 20 seconds, and it takes at least half an ability's duration for it to create a corpse when you reuse it. So, if you use this ability on a 10-second cooldown, it will create a corpse every time. We are also running the 7th Legion set, which is also on a 10-second cooldown. So, the 7th Legion set not only synergizes with the creation of this corpse, which allows us to tether it for the stamina recovery and the healing, but it also serves as a visual reminder as to when we need to refresh our armor or when we have an available corpse up from the armor. Because we are playing such a fast-paced medium armor build, and this is the corpse that is created at our feet, being able to reliably know when you create that corpse when you're running around corners is a huge deal, so you don't put a tether in a spot where you end up LOSing your own tether. And the last and possibly one of the most important factors of the armor is that while you have this up, you take 15% less damage from damage over time abilities. That's a huge deal, man. That's a lot of damage reduction from dots. So yeah, really fantastic defensive buff for this build, having massive synergy with the abilities and sets that we're using. And then last but not least, we have got Temporal Guard. This is going to be your ultimate of choice for your defense. It is also there for that passive minor protection slot. The teleport off this ability will save you from things that no other skill can save you from. So the ability to teleport back to where we were 4 seconds ago, coupled with the speed of our medium armor build, is absolutely perfect for Cyrodiil. We can get away from even 30-man plus Zergs if we use this correctly. Now let's take a look at the champion points on this spec. In the tower tree, we've got 44 in Warlord, 13 bashing focus. We need to break free and we need to bash. This is PvP. In the lover, we have got this pretty stacked 64 Mooncalf, 37 Arcanist, and 32 in healthy. Just kind of reflecting our sustain stats and where they're at. Focus on, of course, stamina, followed by magicka and then health. Now in the Shadow Tree, we have got 40 Shadow Ward and 40 in Tumbling. This is to reduce the cost of our block and our roll dodge. Both are very important for this build. We've got a lot of well-fitted on, so the Tumbling mixed with the well-fitted gives us a very cheap roll on the spec, and blocking is always important in PvP. Now, taking a look at the Apprentice Tree, we've got absolutely nothing. No magic skills that we're using offensively. In the Atronach, we've got 81 Master at Arms, 39 Physical Weapon Expert. Very standard burst tree for that 24% increased direct damage, and of course that 22% increased light and heavy attack damage. The Tactician is the important passive here. We set our opponent off balance with a roll dodge, and that's going to give us a 10% bonus damage to them with the Exploiter passive in our Ritual Tree. That's just a fantastic way to not only get the damage bonus, but you can stun an off-balance opponent with a fully or partial charged heavy attack. The partial charged heavy attack off our bow bar into our weapon swap crit rush is one of the deadliest stun combos we have on this build. You will see in the footage that this is an absolute killer. Now, in the Ritual Tree, we've got 49 in Mighty, 50 in Piercing, and 51 in Precise Strikes. We have a nice even spread here, simply because this is going to give us the most amount of outgoing damage for our build. We just get the most out of our points to have an even spread in this tree. The important passive that we really get here is Last Stand. We get the Major Heroism when we fall below 20% HP. This is World PvP, and we're playing a squishy medium armor build. We likely can come back from a drop in HP to 20% if we can get that heal in time. So we'll get a lot of use out of this passive too. And then finally, Perfect Strike for that 9% weapon critical. Really fantastic. Now, taking a look at the Steed Tree, we have got 61 Resistant, 61 Ironclad, 21 Medium Armor Focus, and 21 in Spell Shield. Just a nice heavy spread here. And this is because our biggest weakness, of course, is incoming Burst. So Crit Resist and Ironclad will do the best job against reducing incoming direct damage, which is Burst. And then Spell Shield, Medium Armor Focus, just to bulk up our resists by a little bit because we get those front heavy points. Now, in the Lady Tree, we've got 37 Hardy and 37 in Elemental Defender. This is just to reduce the incoming damage that we take from Burst yet again. Nothing in Thick Skin, and this is because Necro has fairly good resistance to damage over time, thanks to that 15% reduction in our armor buff. And on top of it, we have quite a bit of healing over time. If you're playing it smart with your tethers, you should not go down to dots on this build ever. And then finally, for the Lord Tree, we've got 32 in Quick Recovery for that additional healing received. We've got a lot of healing sources on this build, so this is actually a great place for us to spend points on the spec. So there you go. That is the build, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this new build video format. I, of course, am going to let some gameplay footage play for you guys while we say our goodbyes here. Now, the one thing that I left out of this build video is the PvP commentary because I felt like I integrated it into the build video. If that is not the feeling that you guys got, let me know in the comments section down below if you think we should have the PvP commentary on top of this kind of a build breakdown as well, or if you guys just liked or didn't like the build breakdown altogether. Now, on the plus side, I don't have to gather as much footage to make a build video this way, and it allows me to make a PvP commentary with only the best of the best fights, and perhaps I could do that as a separate video. That's kind of what I was thinking, but again, I would love to hear what you guys think. And again, if you guys want to find a written guide of this build, you can check it out on my website, KristoferESO.com, a link in the description below for you guys as well. If you guys are interested in sending in your clips for the top 5, or if you want to send in your own build to be featured on the channel, possibly in the new style, you guys can send that to KristoferESO@hotmail.com. We are sponsored by What the Fast. They're a VPN for gamers. They give me better ping to my favorite games, and they are free to try for the first 30 days via the link in the description below. And then last but not least, if you guys love this show and you want to help support it, you can always become a patron on Patreon. Without your help, I wouldn't be able to do this job, so thank you so much to everybody who chooses to help out. Thank you so much to everybody just for watching and enjoying the content. And as always, I hope to see you guys next time. Have a great night, everybody.